Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be talking about how to land your first graduate role. So I'm going to be reflecting on my own experience of landing a graduate role about 10 years ago and the different job roles I've had since then, as well as my experience of recruiting new graduates based on assessment centres and interviews that I've conducted. I'm going to be covering 3 areas in this video. So the first area are your skills, experience and CV. The second area is your cognitive abilities, which will be tested in the assessment centre. And the third area is the interview. So in your CV, you want to cover your education, you want to cover your experience and the key skills that you have. For experience, I would focus on starting off with your professional experience if you have that. If not, you can start straight with whatever part-time roles or extracurricular activities that you've done. The key thing with the CV is to keep it simple and draw attention to the most important aspects of your CV. So the way we tend to read CVs is starting from the top, and we focus on the left-hand side and skim to the right-hand side. So you want to bear that in mind when you're formatting your CV. Keep the key information at the top and keep some of the key points on the left-hand side. A few things you might want to put on your CV could include a university dissertation, if you've done one. Also, if you have some portfolio of work that you've done outside of your university course. So if there's something that you do as a side project where you build up a portfolio, I would include that in your CV. I think that's a really good thing that can help you stand out from other people. So people that do coding, for example, they tend to do projects outside and they'll build like a GitHub page where they show examples of the coding that they've done on different projects. Then overall, you want to keep your CV very clear, very concise, and to 1 or 2 pages. So the second area is going to be looking at your cognitive abilities. So at the assessment center stage, what you're going to be tested on primarily is your numerical, reasoning, and other types of exercises that test your collaboration and other skills. I think these skills are really good things to develop anyway. So, being highly numerate and logical when it comes to reasoning is going to be a good thing that's going to help you throughout your career. So I would recommend that you don't just see this as a process to land you your first graduate role, but actually you see this as a way of building up key skills that are going to be really useful for your career. So to start off with numeracy, what you need to do essentially is be able to look at any graph and pull out some of the key points related to that graph. So in order to do this, you can go online and practice numeracy tests, but what you can also do is look for the website of the Office for National Statistics. They have a range of statistics on different parts of the economy and society, and you can just click on any topic and see a range of charts and quickly try to draw out some of the key information from those charts. Now, getting into this habit will really be good practice when it comes to doing your numeracy tests. Ultimately, you need to be comfortable and able to do things like calculate percentages, ratios, look at different metrics in a table or a chart. And these are kind of the basic things in statistics. So I'll put a link in the description below for something which cover those basic elements. The next thing you want to look at is verbal reasoning. So you're going to have to look at passages of text and draw out key conclusions and reasoning from what those passages are saying. In order to practice doing this, I would just recommend looking through some relatively complicated material, like big paragraphs within reports, and just trying to quickly draw out what the key points are. Again, there are a lot of websites you can practice verbal reasoning tests, and in some ways this is just it does take a bit of practice in order to do this well. Assessment centers can be very complicated and they do differ from employer to employer. So what I'll do is I'll link something really useful in the description notes, which will give you more information on assessment centers and the variety of exercises that you could do during those assessment centers and how to approach them. So there'll be things like group exercises, in-tray exercises, where you just have to get through a lot of information like a day in the real world in the office, and you have to perform like you were performing on the job, and they're just really testing your abilities and skills. The last stage will be the interview. So for a graduate interview, the key thing to remember is that you shouldn't undervalue the experiences that you have. So examples of experiences can be presented in a good or bad way. I've seen really good professional examples be presented in a really poor way. And similarly, I've seen extracurricular activities, dissertations, part-time jobs that are things like retail, working in a restaurant, that have less potential to come across well compared to a professional example, but they've come across really, really well in the way they were presented. When thinking about your experiences, I would recommend focusing on 3 main competencies. So these are collaborating with teammates, working through challenges, and then working to deliver something in the end. So these 3 things you should focus on when thinking about your examples and the experiences that you've had. Have you worked with teams? Which teams have you worked with? Have you faced any challenges while working in your environment and working with different people? And have you had to deliver something? What have you had to deliver, and how did you go about delivering that? Now, this can be in the context, like I said, of a professional experience, of a part-time job, an extracurricular activity that you do, or in a dissertation itself. So a dissertation alone should be able to tick those 3 competencies. So depending on the type of questions that you're asked, you should be able to use a dissertation to answer that question. What I would recommend is jotting down bullet points for each experience that you have. Some of the key things related to that experience that you can use to apply to different questions as they come up. So just say you worked in a restaurant, I would think about the experiences that you've had within the restaurant, who you've worked with, the customers that you've engaged and interacted with. And I'll write down some of the key things that you've had to do, some of the key challenges that you faced, and some of the key things you've had to deliver in the restaurant. Some people, when they're preparing for interviews, might tend to script things, but I would recommend not scripting and just putting down key bullet points, because what you want to do is become really, really fluent in being able to recall those key parts of your examples. So it's just the bullets that you need to remember rather than trying to script like full answers. You also want to prep for specific industry and employer knowledge related to the company that you're actually applying for. You can also think about some questions that you're likely to get asked in the interview and then record yourself answering those questions. Now, as I'm doing with this video, when I look back, there is a great insight into watching yourself speaking. So I can see all the ways that I'm tripping up, how I come across, and all of those types of things. So you see yourself from a unique perspective when you record yourself. So I definitely recommend doing that. Take your mobile phone, record yourself answering a question that you're likely to get asked in the interview. Look back at that recording and think about how you can improve the way you're speaking, how you come across, and how you answer the question. Now, if you prepared bullet points for that question, you can then see how many of the bullet points you actually ticked off without having to look at your notes. And in general, just a few tips for interviewing. I think it's really important to dress well and dress appropriately for the company that you're applying for. So if you feel like you need to wear a suit for the interview, definitely wear a suit. If it's an industry like tech where you might be able to dress down a bit and wear smart casual wear, then I would do that as well. If you're in doubt, you could ask the recruiter or ask someone who's interviewed in that place or industry before about how you should dress. And if the interview is online, it's really, really important to make sure that your camera is at eye level, so you're not looking down at the camera. Make sure that there's good light onto your face so that you're not in the dark and shadow, and make sure that the audio is good. So, I mean, I would even go as far as investing 10 or 20 pounds in a microphone that you can bring close to your mouth, because that will improve the audio quality significantly. And when it comes to anything online, any audio video online, it's the audio actually that's the most important part. So if your panel can hear you speaking really well, and then they switch to another person on another interview and the audio is awful, you will immediately stand out as a really good candidate. So those are my best recommendations across the 3 areas of landing your first graduate role. I hope they were useful, and good luck with your graduate role applications.